what we learned before, it was about extend. So if you have the navigation bar here and you want to keep the navigation bar, you just want to change the contents, then you can just change this part. You can make new HTML. In our case, we have the blog, we have home.html to change for every of the contents. But the upper part, which is from the base, and also the footer, which is also from base, will be the same. I cannot explain all the style here. You can find a good style and you can try to make that kind of design in your web page. So this is the explanation. When you have that URL, when you have this URL and followed by the curly bracket and the percent, so I would like to make this as a URL, unified resource link, and I would like to call home. This is the very important message. Whenever you make the link in the URLs, you always make the name. Maybe this section, we don't care about the name too much. But later on, when you create your web page, you can define the name, and this name will be a kind of link from your web browser to the web backend. So you need to define this one properly. Whenever I call home, and it will go to this home. If I call blog, it will go to this blog, and it will go to the function that I already declared here. If you want to check how we can deal with the contact and the carrier, yeah, you can change the shop button. So you can change shop into the curly bracket with the percent, and then you can define what is the URL that you want to go. And we have three kind of blocks. The first block is the title. The title block. It means you can change later. If, let's say, I have a new file name, base title.html. So when you have the base title.html, you can define in this HTML, you can make the block title, and then you can have the end block, and in between this one you can make any content to replace this block title. Same as this one. In the block content, in the base.html, it is nothing. Nothing in this content, because I would like to put this content in another file. What is the other file? The other file is home.html. We have blog.html. Yeah, you can list up later on with other kind of HTML. Maybe you have the carrier.html and so on. The blog footer You can also define here in another kind of file. Let's say you have another base footer.html, and again you need to define with the Django %. This one to define the block footer, and then please don't forget to put the end block to end your block. So basically in Django there are 3 blocks, okay? Title, content, and footer. You can put more block, okay? But now let's just use these 3 blocks. The base.html will remain the same, while the contents will be depending on the HTML files. In this case, we will check the home.html and blog.html. So the word extends here. The home.html contains extends, which will use the HTML of the given info. We are going to extend from the base.html, and the content will be this one. So if you define another, for example, the title, yeah, you can have also some idea. Let's say I want to define the title in the home. Is it possible? So maybe I will just put like hanging. So I make a text. Okay. Now you can see the title has been changed. Okay. So when you call the home, it will be based on the home. The original text in the base will be replaced with the new title. The same if you want to make your footer here. Here, let's say I want to put this half yongin. If I run this one, then the footer will be replaced with the new one, because in the original file, the base.html, actually we already have the definition. But when we call this one, yeah, everything will be replaced. Yes, you can override the block as you want. So in this case, we have 3 blocks. So if you want to override, yeah, you can make the override contents in different HTML files. And yeah, this is the base.html. I want to update the contents. So it is the same as the home.html and blog.html. The blog.html extends the base.html. So the first part, yeah, you need to define this extends. So if you do not extend it, it will not apply with the design that you have in the base. So the content of the blog.html will be in the statement of the blog content. Okay. That's about the extends. People use extends more than include, because in the include you cannot modify. There will be no block. In the include, you just include, and we have another template. But in the extents, you can have the block and then you can make more flexible on the contents. I hope that you can use these concepts in your web page later on when you do your team project. Okay, let's go to the next content about the web framework. I call it, this is the front end. So I'm going to focus on the front end or the user interface. Web framework, or I can say it is a template with CSS. What is CSS? The web framework provides a style template so everybody can use immediately. Style is related to CSS. CSS is Cascade Styling Sheet. We want to make a style from the general text like in the HTML. Basic CSS is related to the body tag. You can modify the body in the HTML, but you cannot modify the head section in the HTML. I will give you this function. Let's make it a new function in the views.py. And I'm still using the same folder polls. Okay. I hope you still remember the data that we can use in Python. This is a kind of dictionary. Okay, you have key, which is name, and you have the value, which is the city name, Mumbai, Calcutta, New York, Chicago, Tokyo. And I have the key, which is population, and this is the number of the population. And I have country name, India, USA, Japan. Okay, this is dictionary. And the dictionary is in a list. Next, after I have the views.py, let me have a new path. Okay. This path is in the urls.py. It is in the folder polls. So I will just make a new line. This is the table CSS. And I make this index 2. So the name will not be the same with the first line, which is the index. And let's make a new table, a new HTML file, and let's make it as a table css.html. You can copy and paste. It's a bit long, okay? So you can just copy and paste and make it into the folder templates. Let's make a HTML file, table CSS. Table css.html. Once you finish, you can try with your HTML file. So it will be located in the post table CSS, and you will see the web and we can see some kind of style. The style might be related to the color or the font or any styles that you can refer to. This is a very basic hello world example made up in HTML and CSS. So see if you can change the size of the header text above. Yeah, we have the hello world example here. Based on this one, let's check. So it is very convenient to use PyCharm. They can show you what color is this code. This is the hexadecimal. Sharp 2D, 2D, 2D. Maybe we have difficulties to understand what is this color. But you can see here, it shows the color. Okay? In PyCharm, we have this kind of convenience visualization. Like this one, it's one. We have another color, and the color is about red, like this. Now you can see here, I would like to define the style. What is the style here? Inside the style, I have three parts. The first part is body. For the body, I would like to define the background color. So the background color is about like black. And I would like to define H1. You still remember what is H1? Yeah. H1. It is the header. Okay. We have H1, H2, H3, H4. H1 is the header one, so it's the biggest one. H2 is smaller than H1. H3 is smaller than H2 until H6. For the H1, I would like to have the color, this one, and the font size, I can define. This is 30 pixels. And the font family will be this. And if I want to print the P paragraph, let's make it white for the color. And let's make the font family this source code Pro. And we can also define with the Menlo Monaco and the fixed width. If you have this definition for the style, so the body will follow all this style definition. What is the body color? The body color is black. What is the H1 color? When I call the H1, then it will use this style. What is P? When I call the P, it will follow this style. What about the header? The table. If you want to make the table with the style that you define, of course, you need to make like this one, P, P, P. If you don't have the P, then the style will not be changed. So this is the very simple styling. When you want to make this kind of style, I'm not that good on making the CSS. So you can practice how to put the CSS and make as a beautiful web page. However, nowadays, people do not use CSS in details because we can use the web user interface framework. What is the meaning by web user interface framework? When you are designing a web, it requires a lot of efforts. So it's not easy to design. And different purpose require different type of web. If you are designing the e-commerce, it will be different with the government side. If you are designing a blog, it will be different with the data visualization side. And also the device are varied. If you want to make your web and someone want to see your web page in the mobile, or maybe someone want to see it in the gadget, maybe he used tablet or someone use iPad, so the size will be different. And also there's an issue with the operating system. If you are using Windows, it will be different with the web browser in iOS. It will be different with the browser in Linux, Android, and etc. Because of these issues, so people try to develop their framework. Using a framework will assist the development phase. When you use a framework, you don't need to think more about the design in details because there are some framework that you can use. There are some existing framework, for example, Bootstrap. Bootstrap, it has been run by Twitter. And there's another framework, Foundation, Semantic UI, Pure UI Kit, and so on. Okay, so there are many frameworks. I cannot explain one by one. But the most popular one is Bootstrap. You can check this Bootstrap. There are several ways if you want to use the Bootstrap. You can download. In this case, you can use offline. When you download the files, you can see your web page without internet. But if you have your internet for 24 hours, I think you don't need to download. You can put a link. I will teach you later. So this is the Bootstrap framework, and they give you a lot of way to use the Bootstrap. If you use the Node.js, you need to use this one. If you use another kind of implementation like Gem, you need to use this one. Or yeah, we can have the link. So I will use this link. If you want to know the demo of this Bootstrap, you can go to this site. So there are some browser demo. You can design. Let's say I want to make this design. So I want to use this template for my web page. Then you don't need to design anymore. You don't need to define where is this one, what is the heading, what is the font size, what is the font family. It takes time. So the many web framework, they give you this kind of template and you can reuse it. So this is the index.html. Yeah, you can save. Yeah. You can export it. Yeah. What you want to export. Maybe because it is the demo file, you cannot export all the things. Yeah. So you can only export some of the features. Yeah. If by looking at this one, yeah, it is good if you want to, for example, yeah, you want to make an article or you want to make kind of You already have your web page and you want to make only the footers. Okay. This is very useful tools, the Bootstrap Studio, to design your user interface or your front end. Nowadays, there are many works opportunity for the front end because it is very tough job. But the question is, how we can select the best framework. I will just use Bootstrap, but in the future, maybe Bootstrap can be replaced with the other kind of better framework. So you need to see why we need to select that framework. Maybe in the company, some of them they use React framework. Some of them they use some other framework that I didn't follow all the new one, but you can see what is the context, the usage context, whether they are using the CRUD operation or it is for the analysis or it is for the visualization. They have different ways. We are going to learn about the CRUD. CRUD means the create, update, delete operation. And you need to check if the framework is an open source or commercial. Okay? So you need to check the license. And you need to check the software pattern. Next time, I will let you know some of the software pattern. And we need to know also the hosting requirement, whether it is a setup or non-setup requirement. For example, in the Bootstrap, we can just use the link. But if you need to set up, you need to install in your computer, then it may consume some of your memory. Whether it is easy to install. And you can see the learning curve. And you can check the library. Is there any core library for the framework? Do they provide any database? Because in the front end, you need to sometimes connect to the back end through the database. And do they provide the documentation? Is there any community that continuously developing the framework? Is there any updates or is it stopping the development? Or is there any bug fix? And how you can extend the framework? So those are the questions if you want to select the best framework. So I do not want to discuss more about what is the best framework, but I will just use Bootstrap. The Bootstrap, we can have two sections. The first is the head section and the other is in the body section. In the head section, we can connect the Bootstrap into two particular ways. First is package installation. As I open the Bootstrap, you see that we can install it. The other way is using the content delivery network, or we call it the CDN. In the package installation, you need to download the Bootstrap and place the package in your project. So whenever you have project here, you need to put into your project. So it is more memory consumption. But for the content delivery network, you can just place the JavaScript file in the head section. I think I will use this CDN way. It is more efficient. If you are doing with the body section, you need to understand the container. We need to define what is the container, and everything needs to be inside of it. The row class is almost as important. We need later on you will see the container and the row, and we need to use it to specify groupings of column. And also there are number of classes named with the pattern column with question mark, question mark. So there are many languages to define the bootstrap. So I will not discuss many things. Let's just see what we can do in very short time. This case is the example of the head. Whenever you call the HTML, you know that you will have head. In the head, you can define what would be the meta. In the first part of the HTML, we learn that the meta is everything about the description, maybe the outer name of the web page, or some kind of function if we want to go to another page, or how many hours that you want to set up the web page, and etc. In this meta, you can also define what device that fits with your web page. So the name viewport, the content. So you can define the content. If you want to put this content for the web browser, then you can make it as the device with the web browser. Or if you want to make this content for flexible content, for the mobile is also fine. For the computer is also fine. For the laptop is also fine. So there's a kind of dynamic content. So this kind of width, you can specify according to the device width, or you can make it as a flexible content. And there are two things that you need to put in the head. The first is CSS. So the link, you can find something .css. Let's see if I click this one. Okay. So if I open this one. So this is the CSS file that has been shared by the Bootstrap. And you can use it as long as you have the internet. And you don't need to define this, you don't need to design this. You can just use what the Bootstrap has defined. Okay. So that's why I will not teach you the CSS, because you can just reuse this one. The CSS, which is the style sheet, you can use the Bootstrap. So everything, it will be in the .css. And do not forget that every CSS will be followed with the JS. So this JS is JavaScript. For now, let's just use this link. Okay? We will learn more about the JavaScript maybe after the mid exam. You can take a look on this link, so you can see the .js. .js means the JavaScript file. It is the same with the CSS. So the Bootstrap already shared this JavaScript. Everyone can access this one for free. And they can give you a good user interface. So you can use it directly in your web page. Now let's make one kind of example. I would like to make a contact.html. For now, I think I do not connect to the base. Okay, so I'll just make a HTML file. So let's copy and paste this one, and let's make contact.html. You can make in the folder templates, HTML file, contact, and you can change. Okay, so I'm just pasting all the codes. I will explain after this. After I have the HTML file, now let's make the view. I will make one new function contact. I will go to the view. I will make a new function contact, and the writer is Bernardo. I would like to load the contact.html. I have one variable. This is writer. And after this, I can put one more link to the URLs. Okay. So for now, I will just put all this link into one file. Okay. Okay, I can check the contact. Now you can run contact. So it is a kind of form. Yeah, it is not working well for the send because it is only the design, or this is the user interface. So these examples, contact.html, you can see the first line. They use the definition with this information. It is from the TTD. If you want to see, this is a kind of site that has been defined, the texture data table dictionary, something like that. So they have the definition to define about the HTML4. Whenever we use this kind of link, it means the standard of this content is based on the HTML4. You can define the title. Now it is about the contact us. We have link. So the link, as you see in the PowerPoint, we want to deal with the style sheet. And this is a text. And this is for the CSS. I would like to use the bootstrap. And in this case, I'm using the data tables.bootstrap.min.css. You can find many bootstrap format, especially the CSS in the internet, and every version, yeah, they have different function. Now they are keep upgrading, so you can choose the newest one. This is not the newest one. And if you want to use the bootstrap CSS, this is the bootstrap CSS. This is the data tables to create table. And you need to connect to the JavaScript. So whenever you have the CSS, it is always connected with the JavaScript. For now, let's just use the JavaScript. Now you can see that this is a form. you already learned how to create form in the very basic HTML. But now you can see that the form has been upgraded. We need to understand that there is a class. And then in the class, we can define the size of the class, whether we are making like it's for MB4, yes. So the in Bootstrap, they have this kind of definition. And then the input is the same, like the type is the text, and then the ID, what is the ID, and the class, it refers to the class that has been defined in the Bootstrap. This is also the class that has been defined in the Bootstrap. When you make the selection, so the selection also have the class that has been defined in the Bootstrap. So you can see that the style is maybe in very stylish. You can see the box is rounded box. Yeah, I show you this one, the very simple Bootstrap code. Yeah? And for example, we have the div. So this is the text area, and then I would like to find the class name. So the class name will make the format according to the CSS that has been defined in the Bootstrap. You can choose what kind of Bootstrap comments that you want to use for your web page design. You like this one? Send me a copy of this message. So it is using the checkbox, and this use the class custom control input. If you want to follow the documentation of the Bootstrap, there are many things, and you can choose which one is the best for your design. Okay, I think I will explain the other things, the remaining things next week. Okay. Thank you very much for listening.